this video, we're going to start working with MongoDB so we can store members into a database instead of just using the mockup data that we're using in the application at the moment. So in the application here, let's go to the terminal and stop the terminal here, and let's install MongoDB by typing npm I MongoDB. And if you don't have the MongoDB database, search for MongoDB Community Edition so you can download this database to your local computer. Or you can use the Mongo Atlas account, which is the cloud-based database, and that way you don't have to download anything to your computer. Let's run the application back up. Now that I finished installing MongoDB. And then the first thing we're going to do, we're going to create our new page, which is going to be inside of members. Let's do members, and then let's do a new. So we're going to need a new path. We want to go to /new. So we're going to create a new folder, which is going to be new. It's going to be the new endpoint here, or routes. So /new, let's create a new file. Let's call it page.tsx. And let's hide the terminal so we can have more space. And here, we're going to start putting together the form. So let's do a export default function create, or let's call it member create page. And for now, let's return a form. The form is going to have, let's see what we're going to need. We're going to need a input for the name, and we're going to need an input for the avatar. And then pretty much that's all the information we need from the user. So let's just do, let's put an H3 here. This says create new member. And let's have a div. The div is going to have a label. And here we're going to need the name of the user. Let's have a HTML for name. And then the input here of type text with the name of name, because name is what we need the name of the member, ID name, and let's keep it at this for now. Cool. So that's for the name. We're also going to need one for the avatar. So the avatar is also going to be something very similar. Let's just copy this one down, because we're also going to have a div with a avatar. So we're going to need the image. Okay. And then let's call this one there we go. And then HTML for text name here. Let's call it avatar, and name ID avatar as well. There we go. So now let's see what else we need. Let's have a button right after the two inputs, and let's do create. Let's give it a type of submit. Save it, and then let's see, let's create a, in the header, we can create a new route. So we're gonna have members, and let's copy this one down, and this one's gonna go to /new. And let's go this one, create. So now let's refresh this. So when we click on this link here, it's going to take us to /new. /new is this new route that we created here, and it's going to show this page when we get there. So we click on create. And right now we're getting a 404. Let's see, let's look back at the header. href is /new. And then here, did I create this nested inside of something else? No, it's right there. And okay, so I think we need to go back and change this here to /members, because we're nested in here, so we're nested inside of the members folder. So it's /members /new. So now click on create again. Let's go back to members, go to create, and now we see the form. Cool. So the link, the href is /members, because we're inside of the members routes, and then /new. Right, that's how it works here. And then new will be the route, and it will load this page here. So let's add some CSS here really quick. Let's do on the, let's see if we want, let's wrap everything inside of another div here. So let's do a div, and then this div will go all the way down right before the closing form tag. And then to this div, let's add a class name, and we're gonna add flex call, a gap of 3. Let's do max-w-xl, mx-auto, and let's do a bg-slate-300, and then let's do p-5 and rounded. Cool. Now to the h3, let's do class name. Let's do font -bold, and let's do a m-3 for the margin. And what else we need here? Let's go into the first div here, and these are all going to have, let's see, we have a flex, have this class name flex, and let's do a gap of 4. And what else do we need? We need, let's do a, in the label, I have a class name for, let's see, what did I do? I deleted one quote here. So class name, let's do w-10, and then we're going to do the same for the next div here. So we can copy all the class names here for, this div here. And we just paste it on this one. And then what else we did? We did the class name here And then this one is w-10. And then what else we got? We did, I think that's fine. Let's look at the button here. On the button, let's do class name, and we have rounded. We have bg dash green dash 500. Then we have, what else we got? We got p-2 and width dash full. Okay, that's okay for now. That's everything we need. Now, let's connect to MongoDB. So for the form, you can style it however you want. You can make this the same size if you want. I just didn't want to have too many classes here, but you could change this to, you know, something of your liking. I know right now this doesn't kind of like match the size, but you can easily fix this if that's what you need. So for the connection to the MongoDB, let's go to the DB folder and let's create a new file. Let's call it, that's a right click and new file. Let's go this one, MongoDB.ts. And let's just call it DB like this. Cool. So here we're going to import the MongoDB client. MongoDB client, where is it? Mongo client. And then we're going to, let's create a variable called DB client. And then let's have a try catch here where we're going to, let's log the error if we get one here. And then inside of the try, we're going to say if there's no process.env.mongodb underscore URI. This is the environment variable that we're going to use to connect to our database. We're going to set that up in the .env in a second. If this is not true, if we don't have this, we're going to throw a new error here. And we're just going to say MongoDB URI is require. Next, we're going to, if we pass that check, we're going to say DB client equals to a new Mongo client. We're going to pass in process.env.mongodb underscore URI. So we can create our new connection. And then we're going to just call db.connect right after this one. DB client.connect. And then let's just export default DB client. And then this one, we're going to use typecasting to export it as a MongoDB client. So TypeScript knows already the type of these DB client that we're creating here. So this is already created here. Now let's create a new file inside of, let's see, it needs to be all the way outside. So let's close the src And in the outside here, we're going to right click new file .env.local. And the cool thing is that Next.js already have a package. It's already support your .env files and your environment variables. So we can just create a new environment variable here. So MongoDB underscore URI. And we're going to set that equals to, if you're trying to get to connect to an external MongoDB in Atlas, you need to go and get the URI. But if you're using a local database like I'm using here, you could just grab it from here. Let's say if I just disconnect, I can always get the URI from here, the local one, and I can copy that from there and then just connect back in here and then throw that in here as the value. And then the database that I want to connect to is going to be / let's create members. Let's do lowercase. What's going on with my keyboard? So this is the URI value for the MongoDB database. Cool. So if you're using the Atlas, your URI is going to be something that they're going to give you, something unique. They're going to give you from the MongoDB Atlas. And then you have to like put your passwords that you set for your database in the cloud. Here's the local one just for testing, so we don't need that here. And then now we can close the MongoDB file because we're done there. Now we're ready to go back to the new page. And inside of the new page, we can import the MongoDB client that we just created. So let's do import DB client right there from @ /db / MongoDB. So the @ here, remember, is a shortcut to your SRC folder. So this just always point to the SRC /db / MongoDB. And then what else do we need? We're going to also, I think that's, for the moment, that's everything we need. So let's just have that here. And remember that in Next.js, by default, all of your components, so this component here, this page component here that we created, by default is a server component. So server components are components that are going to allow you to, create UI elements like we do in here. And these components are going to be rendered in the server, not in the client, but in the server. And then the server will send the HTML that was generated from the server component. So inside of the server component, we're going to create a server action, and a server action is going to be a asynchronous function that is going to allow you to execute code that runs in the server. And that function is what is going to handle the form submission, even if we don't have any JavaScript in the client. And that is, in the rare case that the browser doesn't have JavaScript activated or something like that. But in here, we're going to create our server action. And remember, server action is going to be a asynchronous function. So let's do a const create member. And then this function is going to be a asynchronous function that is going to receive some form data, right? So we can just declare form data here. Let's declare again form data. And then that is going to be of type form data. Right, so the form data is going to be all the data available inside of the form that gets submitted using this create member server action function that we're creating. So in order for this to officially run in the, I forgot the greater than sign here. So we can officially make this a server action, we need to have a directive here. So we're going to put quotes and just type use server. So this is going to be running on the server. Let's grab the name and the avatar values from the form. So we're going to say in here const name is going to be equals to foreign data. Remember, all the data that gets, all the data from the form will be also always available here in foreign data. And we can use the .get, and then we can use any of these names here that we assign. So avatar or name in order to get those values. So we want the name and we're going to cast it as a string. So TypeScript knows what type is this name here. Also, we're going to do that with the avatar equals foreign data dot get, and we want to get the avatar value, and we're going to cast it as a string as well. So we are just grabbing whatever gets typed here in this input, in the name input, and in the avatar input here. And we have it available here now. So in here, we're ready to create our, or to submit our data to the MongoDB database. So let's use the client that we imported at the top here. We're going to say const member equals await. And remember, this is a asynchronous function. We can use await in here. So normally, if you're using a client component, like you would normally do in just React, you will have to put this inside of a use effect or a onSubmit handler or something like that. But in here, we can just do it inside of this asynchronous server action function. So we're going to await DB client in here, and we're going to do let's do .db. So we need to select the database that we want to access. So the name that we assigned was members, right? So this database here, members. So we just have to go back here and say, look in the members database, and then we're going to do collection. Remember, we're going to have a collection of documents inside of MongoDB. And then, let me see, the collection should be members. Collection, I think collection should be named members, so it can be more clear. And then this one, we should call it maybe next-members. So we can differentiate these two a little bit more clear. Let's rename this here to next-members. So the database is next-members, so we know is our next application, and the members application that we're creating. So we specify that here. Collections, I feel like I'm doing that double here. We'll see. Let's say, and then after we select the database and then the collection, we can use the .insert1, and then we can pass in an object with the name, with the avatar, and also we want a, remember, in the data that we're using now, we have a name, we have an avatar, we have an ID. The ID is going to be created by MongoDB, so we don't need to create our own, but we need the created at, so we can keep it similar to this, so we don't have to refactor too many things. So we're going to create a created at here, and then we're going to set that to, let's just set it to a new date dot, let's do new date like this, dot to ISO string. That should give us the date similar to what we have, or identically to what we have in this setup here. So now let me move this a little bit here. Okay, we got all the information. We got a name, we got an avatar, we got the created at. So here, let's just console log the member that was created. And then we also, when we create the new member, we want to redirect the user to the members page. So we can import up here, redirect from Next.js navigation. And then we can redirect the user here to /members. Cool. So the create member server action is done. Now we need to pass this create member server action to the form. So in this case, because this is going to be a server component, the form, we're going to pass it to the action attribute here of the form and pass in the create member here. And now I think we're ready to test this up. So let's go to home really quick, go to members, go to create, we see the form. Now if let's open up the terminal here and let's create a new user, Anna, and then we can copy one of these strings here from the data that we're using, just so we can test this out. So let's copy any of these is fine. I don't know, the names doesn't really match with the images. So let's put it here and let's do create. And now in the console log, we have acknowledged true, and there was a new object that was inserted to the database. So if we take a look at the MongoDB Compass here, if you didn't have MongoDB Compass, you can download it from MongoDB, or if you installed the community edition, it normally brings Compass for you. So you can open up Compass in order to look at the database here if you want to. So as soon as I refresh here, you can see we have our next -members database. We can click on that one. We can click on the members collection, and we see we have Anna created, we have the avatar, and we have the created at. We can create a few more, so that way we have a couple of, right now we don't see the one that we created because we're still reading from this data here, from the test data that we have. We're going to change that in a second. Let's just grab another string from here, so it can be a different image. Let's go back to create, say max, let's have the image here, hit create, and let's do one or two more. Let's copy this image, go to create, let's say Jim, and let's have the avatar string here, hit create, and let's do one last one real quick. So we can have 4 documents in our database. and let's paste the avatar there and hit create. Cool. So now we have inserted 4 different documents to our database. We can double check that here. We can refresh it here. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. One thing is that MongoDB will create this _ID. You could modify that, but normally you want to use this ID if you're using MongoDB. These are really useful, and we normally just use this ones here. We have just ID, but we can just make them _ID on inside of our application when we're done setting everything up. So that's the only difference that we see from what we're using now and what we're setting up in the database here. But we can fix that in a little bit. So now what I want to do is that I want to read the data from our database and not from these static file that we have. So we're going to go back to the members page. So if we go to /members here, whoops, and then we go to page, this is where we're mapping over all of the different members. So here we're going to import. We left some stuff here. We could remove all of this stuff here that we don't need anymore because we already know this is working. This is bad practice. Let's clean that up. So let's right on the members, let's import, let's comment this out, and let's import here the DB client so we can talk to our database. And then we need to let's see, let's just talk, yeah, let's reach out to the database inside of the function here, inside of the component. Let's create, I comment this out because I want to create this same variable here. So let's say const members equals await, and then we need to make this function async to use await. And then we're going to say db client dot db, and the db that we're trying to talk to is the next dash members, and then we're going to do dot collection is going to be the members collection, and then we're going to do the dot find to grab all of the documents, and then dot to array to make that to a array that we can map over. So I just refactor that, and now everything is in a separate line. And as soon as we do that, we get this red line here that says type with ID document is missing the following properties: ID, string. So TypeScript is not happy at the moment because is throwing an error. It's indicating that we're missing some of the props here that your component is expecting. So basically is that TypeScript right now doesn't know what this members here are, so it doesn't know what is being returned here. So what we're gonna do, let's create we need to inform TypeScript about what this collection is about. So what is going to be returned from the members collection here. So let's create a type outside of the file. So instead of src, let's right click and create a new folder. Let's call it types. Let's create a new file. Let's just call it index.ts. And in there, we're going to create a new type, or yeah, let's do export type, and then member, or We can create a type or create an interface. Let's create a type, that's fine. And let's do, so each member that is going to be returned from MongoDB is going to have a underscore ID, which is going to be of type object ID. So we need to import object ID from MongoDB and then pass it here, object ID. And then is going to have a name, which is going to be a type string, avatar, type string, and then we're going to have a created at, which is also going to be a string. And then here we need an equal signs. And here we need to delete this here. Cool, so now let's import this member type that we created in this index.ts. Let's import it back into the page, inside of the member page. Let's import it here. Import, what's all this? Import member from types, and then we're going to pass it to the collection here as the type. So we're going to do members in here. So let's see. Cool. So now we're telling TypeScript that this collection is going to be a array of members here. So each document is going to have this structure here that we define inside of the types. It's going to have an underscore ID, name, avatar, and created at. And now if we scroll over here, we still got the, well, we got a new TypeScript error here. It says now that ID is missing in the with ID members here because we didn't define an ID, we defined underscore ID because underscore ID is what we're going to get from the database now. We were just using ID because the test data that we were using here had this ID here, but we're going to use underscore ID here instead. So let's do underscore ID. That will go away. Object ID is not assignable. Here we're gonna get a new error in a second. We can fix that here. So I think now we could go into the member item because let's see if we gotta do anything else here. Let me double check here. Yeah, I think we can go into the member item here, but right now let's just fix this one. I think here we need to do let's fix this by doing, also I think we need to also import, let's import object ID from MongoDB here because we need to create a new object ID by passing this new ID that was generated by MongoDB. So here we're going to use backticks, so do $, and then we're going to do new object ID, and we're going to pass in this member dot underscore ID, and then backtick. 2 backticks in there. Let's see, let me put this into the next line so I can see everything together. So here, backtick. I'm missing a closing curly here. Cool. So now we're using the object ID class or object here to generate a new object ID, passing the object ID that was generated from MongoDB here. So we pass in this here so we can display it and pass it to the key prop. Now let's go to member item and a member item that's in the components. Components member item here. And then here, we need to update this ID to be underscore ID. And then this is also going to be of type, well, this one here right now, this interface, we can actually just kind of like delete this here because we already have the type in a separate file here, the member type. So what we can do is import the member type that we created and pass it to here. So we can get rid of all of this here and just say member is going to be of type member, like so. Now it notes all the properties here, and then here member needs to be member dot underscore ID, and save. I don't see any more red lines in here, so we're reusing that type that we have in a separate file. That is a better approach, you know, to just create your types in a separate file and import it in the different files that you needed. So now let's do, oh, you're ready to refresh? Here we got our 4 new members that we have in our database. So if we go to test this out, go to home, go to members, let's create one more. Let's grab a new avatar here. So let me go all the way down to make sure I don't pick the same one. And grab this one. And let me see what names do we have. Let's just create Mike. Paste it here. Create. And now we got Mike. All right. So right now we just work in the C for create. We can create new members, and the R for read. We can read from the database and we can render the members that we have stored inside of our MongoDB database. In the next video, we're going to finish up the CRUD functionality, where we can update and delete as well. See you there.